Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the DFS Hockey Report. It's Monday, January the 19th. Yes, the 19th. Hope everyone's having a fine Monday afternoon. It is a 10-game slate in the NHL today, but 4 early games, 6 late games. So we're here to break down the 6-game main slate for DraftKings and FanDuel. We focus on DraftKings pricing, but if you want to play on FanDuel, basically everything you hear on today's show, aside from like values and pricing, can still be applied. It's interchangeable in terms of just looking at the metrics, but so plays that are good on DraftKings are usually still pretty good plays on FanDuel, just outside of some pricing changes. If you're new here, if you're not, welcome back in. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. Tonight's slate doesn't start till 7:30. No Zach today either, so just me. It's a solo show today. Starts at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. And it will start with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Joseph Woll gets the start for the Leafs. It's going to be Philip Gustafson for the Minnesota Wild. Some injury notes for both sides of this one. The Toronto Maple Leafs will still be without William Nylander. Matthew Nyes will be a game-time decision. Scott Laughton skated in Nyes' spot this morning. Expect that to be the case if Nyes doesn't end up playing. As for the Wild, it's much of the same. Over the weekend, we saw them without all 3 of their second-line players. No Marcus Johansson, no Joel Eriksson, and no Matt Boldy from left to right, which has led to them putting Kaprizov, Hartman, Zuccarello together. Massive minutes over the weekend. Zuccarello played something like 25 minutes in that game. Went to overtime, so a little bit inflated, but still just monster minutes for the Minnesota Wild top line expected tonight. Let's keep moving along here with the starting goalies. It's an early start in Vegas because of the holiday. So no morning skates for either side. Aiden Hill projected to get back between the pipes for the Golden Knights. Samuel Ersson projected to start for the Flyers. Dan Vladar was added to IR today, so it's not going to be him. Kolosov gave up 3 goals in the first 3 shots that he faced the other night. I don't anticipate it's going to be him. The Flyers are really, really desperate for like a save, maybe a 700 save percentage tonight. Spencer Knight gets the start for the Chicago Blackhawks. Andre Burakovsky will be a game time decision for them this evening. Colton Dach skated in Burakovsky's spot in the morning skate. Oliver Moore took his spot on the top power play unit. We'll see if those stick in warmups. Let's get Connor Hellebuck getting the start for the Winnipeg Jets. No changes expected for Winnipeg. The Flames will go with Devin Cooley. It's another Markstrom Monday here that Zach is missing. He's not here to disparage the great name that is Jacob Markstrom. From what I can remember, some small changes here for the Devils isn't going to be a huge issue outside of the actual lineup shuffling. Meyer, Hughes, Bratt back together. Hischier, Mercer, Palat re-enters the lineup, and then some shuffling among their bottom 6 here. Then you've got Kevin Lankinen getting the start for the Vancouver Canucks. It's going to be Ilya Sorokin for the Islanders. The Canucks are going to be shuffling their lines up again tonight as well. You're going to see Jake DeBrusk with Pettersson and Besser, and then mixing up basically every line. They traded Kiefer Sherwood to the San Jose Sharks this afternoon as well, so no Sherwood in the lineup for the Canucks, obviously. The Islanders will make some small tweaks as well. Sipakov back in the lineup. He'll draw in on the third line with Richie and Heineman. The top line remains Lee, Barzell, and Duclair. And then the final game of the night, you've got the Anaheim Ducks facing the New York Rangers. The Ducks are going to get Chris Kreider back in the lineup tonight, so he'll be on what is, I guess, the top line with McTavish and Ryan Strome. The second line remains the same with Granlund, Seneca, and Killorn. Cutter Gauthier still buried on the third line. The New York Rangers, not much change from their last outing. Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere together, Perot, Zibanejad, Miller on that second line. Those are your 12 projected, confirmed, or likely starting goalies for tonight's slate. Let's get to the chat here for a second. Feel like Toronto between Woll, Sorokin, leaning Woll. We'll get to the goalies here in a little bit. I don't mind Woll tonight. Wool, if you're going for a slate breaker, Minnesota is super chalky. Yeah, we'll get to that for sure. Is Quinn Hughes too cheap? Or is Quinn Hughes too cheap? Jack Hughes hasn't taken any faceoffs since returning. He's too much. I mean, yeah, for DFS purposes, not a huge impact, obviously, on the faceoff dot. But let's get to the goalies here. There's some goalie questions there. Joseph Woll is projected to be the highest scoring goalie on the slate, just 6% owned. So really nice looking slate breaker there. Some chalk busting potential there from Joseph Woll. Certainly interesting tonight. Ilya Sorokin was the other goalie mentioned there. I think he's got definitely a higher win equity here. Obviously projected for 56% implied win percentage versus Joseph Wool just 51.5. So yeah, Wool probably going to face some of the most volume on the slate. So I think he's got the most kind of upside. But Sorokin, I think, is a little bit of a safer play. But let's start with that Toronto Minnesota game. Basically, a coin flip here. Both teams dealing with some injuries. The Wild certainly looking like the better 5v5 team as of late. The Maple Leafs have been on a bit of a roll. Haven't beaten the, hasn't been the best schedule in terms of who they've beaten. It hasn't been kind of the who's who of opponents. And the funniest part of it is they've been winning games and they haven't really made up any ground in the Atlantic Division because that division seems to be incredibly hot. So yeah, I mean, they won 4 in a row. They beat the Panthers, good for them. And then the Flyers, the Canucks, and then beating the Avs in OT, obviously impressive. Then they lose to Utah and Vegas and then beat the Jets in overtime. That's their last 7 games. So yeah, a couple good wins, couple bad losses in the mix there. But super interesting game, especially just from a DFS standpoint. I think it's going to be a fun hockey game as well. The Wild, they don't grade out too bad defensively. They've cleaned things up a little bit. The Leafs, not great defensively. Both teams not very good at the PK. There's enough firepower, even with the injuries, to make some noise. And here we go. Top 2 lines on the slate. Minnesota 1 and Toronto 1. Minnesota 1, obviously, somebody just mentioned in the chat they're going to be super chalky tonight. Yes, they're going to draw a significant amount of ownership, 15%. It's not, crazy high. And I really like Minnesota 1 tonight. They are projected to be the second highest owned line on the slate, with Anaheim 2, Beckett Seneca and Mikkel Granlund drawing nearly 20% ownership each. Going to be a very popular build tonight, Minnesota 1 and Anaheim 2 together without question. But Minnesota 1, like I said, they played so much ice time in that first game with all the injuries. And they're projected for an enormous amount of ice time tonight, which isn't surprising. They're projected for 33% of the ice time. And this is a trio that has spent a decent amount of time together in the past. They generate a lot of quality looks, 42 scoring chances, 15 high danger, nearly 16. Matchup-wise, it's not amazing. They're going to see a fairly healthy mix of the top 9, but about 50% of their ice time is going to come up against that John Tavares line, which has done a pretty good job defensively this year, but they've still given up 4.2 goals against per 60. So, obviously I think that number is probably somewhat inflated. They've done a really good job. So I don't think it's necessarily the greatest matchup, but I'm not sure it matters much with how much Minnesota 1 is expected to play. They also draw the 5th best power play advantage of the night. And that line's obviously going to fully correlate on that top power play unit. So for those 2 reasons, just how much ice time they're expected to see at 5v5, and then obviously the full correlation on the power play makes a lot of sense for Minnesota 1. I think it's a really, really good spot, which is funny to say on the heels of talking about how I like Joseph Wool tonight. I think the other thing that makes Minnesota 1 extremely easy to get to and very viable is the fact they're just not expensive. They're 19,300 and Kaprizov is $9K, but Hartman and Zuccarello are maybe 2 of the best value options on the entire slate at 49 and 5,400 respectively. So I like this line a lot tonight. I think they're in a really good spot. I think it's a little bit trickier. Obviously the matchups kind of get better the further you go down the lineup here for the Wild. There's just not much offense to be found here in the depth of the Minnesota Wild. I think the one other kind of stack that you could go to, there's a couple ways to look at it here. I think you could probably get to some Urov and Tarasenko. I think you could get to some Tarasenko and Quinn Hughes mini stacks and get that power play exposure for Tarasenko, I think is a fine option. I still think the upside is obviously much greater for Minnesota 1, but I mean, not that long ago, we saw a massive game from Urhoff and Tarasenko together, and it's not out of the realm of possibility that it could happen again tonight. So if you want to get some exposure to Minnesota and not, pay up for the ridiculous ownership that you're going to get on this top line, I think Minnesota 2 is an okay option. Their matchup is pretty good. Going to be a pretty even mix between the first and the third line. That Matthews line has been really good offensively, but they've struggled a little bit defensively, especially the 4.7 goals against, but 2.9 expected goals against, not very good. The third line has been very good defensively. So it's not the best matchup for Minnesota 2 either. It's, I think they're a little trickier to get to, but it's an okay spot. Toronto on the other side here, McMahon, $3,600 feels like a really good value. He's been solid as of late. Matthews is really starting to come on again, $9,500. Domi kind of take it or leave it. He's fine. Just I never really have a lot of faith on any given night that Domi's going to be productive. Slightly above average matchup for them, but the underlying metrics have been really, really solid. So they're going to see basically everybody but Minnesota 3, and Minnesota 3 is their worst defensive line. So take that with what you will. I think Toronto 1's in a fine spot. Toronto 2, if Nyes plays, I like them more. If he doesn't, not great. I don't mind Tavares' price tag, but I feel a lot better about this line with Matthew Nyes. The underlying metrics quite good. They're going to plummet with Scott Laughton up there. So, kind of a cop-out to say that most of my interest coming in on both teams' top lines, but it's the truth here. I don't mind Toronto 2. I don't mind Minnesota 2. The depth of the Maple Leafs, this third line, has been reasonably productive. They draw an okay, basically 50% matchup. So if you're looking for a really cheap alternative line tonight, Cowan, Roy, Robertson, I think is fine. I said Roy, it's Nick Waugh, but yeah, $8,100. I mean, they're as cheap as can be, and they open things up. Again, if I'm building one lineup tonight, probably not Toronto 3, but if you're building, a 20 max or something greater than that, I think that there's enough upside here with those three players that they could make a little bit of sense. Let's get to game number 2, which is the Vegas Golden Knights and the Philadelphia Flyers. So I'm just going to pull up one of my posts from earlier today so I can reference the stats. I do a betting article every day now, if you guys want to check that out. Let's get to Shea Theodore. Okay. The Flyers have allowed at least 5 goals in 5 straight games, surrendering 5.8 goals per game during that stretch. That's really bad. Meanwhile, Vegas has been rolling offensively, averaging 5.1 goals per game in their last 7 games. So this is like a red-hot Vegas offense meeting a Flyers team that has just been absolutely awful. I don't think the Flyers are bad defensively. I think they're getting worse. I think their defensive numbers, their rolling 5 game average at 5v5 is certainly getting worse. It's still not terrible, but they just can't get a stop. So it doesn't really matter. And even if they kind of hold Vegas at bay a little bit at 5v5, if Erickson can't make a stop, it doesn't matter. And then you factor in that Vegas has the number 1 power play advantage on the night, and it's not close. They have the best power play overall. It's clicking at 27%. The Flyers PK kills 77% of the penalties, but they give up a ton of chances. And the Golden Knights, are projected for the most power plays tonight. So Vegas looks like they are in a fantastic spot tonight, and I'm super interested in them. The one thing that I feel like I haven't heard really anybody talk about is how hot Mark Stone is. Mark Stone, he's up to $7,300. He is on fire. He comes into tonight on a 3-game goal scoring streak. In January, he has 8 goals, 8 assists in 9 games. And if you date back to basically the beginning of December, he has 29 points, including 14 goals in his last 20 games. He is scoring at a 57 goals, 62 assists, 119 point pace over his last 20 games. He's been insane. Now, the shot volume is okay, 2.4 shots per game, 4.0 shot attempts. He's shooting 30% over that stretch. It's obviously not sustainable, but we're talking about a guy that has just been one of the since Christmas. Actually, he's the only player that has more goals than him in the NHL is Nikita Kucherov. So he's been on fire, and he's only $7,300, which is more than it kind of normally is because he's finally getting the recognition he deserves, and he's really only 10% owned tonight. I think that Eichel and Stone are being a little bit overlooked on this slate. I expected Vegas to see higher ownership than they are. I mean, the Flyers cannot stop a puck. So I am very interested in this Vegas power play as a whole. So I don't mind getting to a little bit of Dorofeyev and Marner either. Hurdle, I think, is a little bit more difficult to get to on this third line, but Dorofeyev, Marner together, I think that's a solid mini stack. But I think the majority of my interest, I'll probably meet the field on Marner and Dorofeyev, but I plan on being over the field on Eichel and Stone if they come in around, 13% like they're projected for right now. The matchups aren't going to look good because the Flyers were so good defensively early in the season. So you got to, I think, take these matchups with a grain of salt. I think this is the one reason why I really like Vegas 1 more than Vegas 2 is their underlying metrics are very good. Vegas 2's metrics without Tomas Hertl are awful. And Dorofeyev and Marner have gotten there recently, but it's basically got to come on the power play or they're not going to score because they are doing nothing at 5v5 with the new lines. Basically, since they've moved Marner to the middle and put Hertl on the third line center, and they put Riley Smith up on that second line with Marner, it's just been a black hole offensively. So without Hertl, Dorofeyev and Marner struggle a lot. So I still think they're interesting because the power play matchup is so good and Harrison sucks, but it's a little trickier to get there. Hurdle one-offs, I think, are kind of interesting as well. This line has produced enough offensively. I don't really care for Kolasar or Bowman. Like Bowman's okay, I guess, but hurdle one-offs I think are fine too if you want to kind of get different level of exposure to the Golden Knights, because obviously everybody outside of Hurdle are seeing pretty high ownership. He's only 7%, so I think that's interesting. Whatever you want says I love Stone tonight. Yeah, me too. Nyes out make much of a difference for Minnesota and Toronto if out. I think that Tavares' second line will probably be a little bit better defensively with Scott Lawn up there, but they won't be nearly as good offensively. So yeah, I would say maybe a downgrade a little bit for Minnesota offensively, but I don't think it honestly doesn't make much of a difference. It just zaps any of interest I have in Toronto 1 or Toronto 2, pardon me. The Flyers lines are a total guess because there was no morning skate. Bobby Brink's expected to be back in. He's basically been attached to Noah Cates' hip, so I expect he'll be back there, which would likely move Denver Barkey back up to the Couturier line or back down, whichever way you want to view that depth chart. But yeah, just kind of know that these are guesses. This is a team that's reeling right now. Don't be surprised if we see some wholesale changes. You know, they basically only have 3 centers. So do we see Trevor Zegras go back to the center position? I doubt it. I imagine they'll just double shift somebody on that fourth line for the 7 minutes that they're going to play. I think that makes a lot more sense. But just keep in mind the Flyers lines could get shuffled a little bit. Either way, their matchups are horrific. Offensively, the metrics are pretty good for this top 9. I just don't really trust them in this spot. I think this is a team that's in a bit of trouble right now. They're drawing 5% ownership. I'm pretty happy to fade that. I just don't think the Flyers are going to turn this one into a barn burner. And I mean, they're going to need to score without question. I don't think they're going to get the job done against a Vegas team that's just so good at 5v5 and so good on the PK. So I don't really have a lot of interest in the Flyers. They're not going to be very popular tonight at the 2.6 implied total either. They also come in with the worst power play matchup of the night. Let's get to game number 3. We've got the Chicago Blackhawks hosting the Winnipeg Jets. The Jets are minus 132 road favorites in this one. Just give me a second here. The Blackhawks, 32nd ranked offensively, going up against 21st ranked defense. The Jets have been better. Chicago won grades out really well in this game. And, with Burakovsky in, I think it's interesting. With Burakovsky out, I think I'm probably going to downgrade them a little bit. Let me see if I can pull up some numbers here on what. I can't imagine they've played a lot without Burakovsky. But let's see what we can pull up here really quick, just to give you a good idea of how much it should zap your interest if he is out. Ryan Green and Andre Burakovsky. So Bedard and Green have played 82 minutes together without Burakovsky, 207 minutes with him. The numbers are a little bit worse, but not much. So I don't think there's a lot of change without Burakovsky. So yeah, I think you should still have interest in Chicago 1. They're really not drawing any ownership at all. Obviously, Connor Hellebuyck's very good, but I think that they're in a really interesting low-owned spot tonight. They grade out really well, and it's because they have the number 1 matchup score of the night. They are going to go up basically 52% of the ice time, about half their ice time or just over, against the Jonathan Toews line, which has been really, really bad defensively. Jonathan Toews returned to Chicago tonight, by the way. So we'll get to that one in a minute. But yeah, Taves' line has really struggled defensively. They've been better offensively as of late, but kind of getting fortunate more than anything, not generating much still. So yeah, that looks like a really nice spot for Chicago 1. And that's 52% of the ice time. The other 22% is expected to come against Winnipeg 4, which is even worse defensively. So 75% of their ice time coming up against these two lines, which grade out awful defensively. Now, the actual goals against numbers don't meet the expected goals against numbers because Connor Hellebuyck is still very good. So I don't think that Chicago won just because the matchup looks incredible is just a plow play, but I think that it lines up for them to be a pretty sneaky lower owned option tonight. The power play doesn't grade out very well. It's in a bit of a tough spot. So that kind of, hamstrings them a little bit. But I do think Bedard, especially at 8K, really nice price tag there. Green's been playing a lot better at 3,400. And if Burakovsky's in the lineup, they fully correlate that top power play unit. I think They're pretty interesting. If Colton Dock moves up there, I think you could probably just include him in your Chicago one builds. He's $2,500. He brings the price tag down to 13,900. That's a pretty high upside line for 13,900. It's even a pretty high upside line for 15K. The rest of the Chicago lineup, not a lot of interest for me. Decent numbers across the board, but just no one really touches that matchup. They're all pretty good. I have a hard time believing in anybody outside of like maybe a little bit of Tyler Bertuzzi. It's hard to get to the rest of the lineup. Yeah, I just think it's difficult. This third line's got decent offensive metrics, just not scoring. So I'll probably just look the Chicago one for the most part. Maybe a bit of a cop out, but probably only looking to Winnipeg one as well. The problem is they're going to draw that Jason Dickinson matchup tonight, and we know on the show that Jason Dickinson is very good defensively. So yeah, I think Winnipeg one is probably in a bit of a more difficult spot than it might look on the surface, and they're drawing a small amount of ownership, not crazy, but it's decent, right? 8% on Scheifele, 12% on Connor. The Jets are so hard to figure out. This feels like more of a fade than a smash to me, if I'm being honest. I will probably get some Winnipeg one in the mix tonight, but it won't be significant. I think this is a really, really tough matchup for them against that Dickinson line. I think that Dickinson line does a really good job, and the power play matchup isn't very good because the Chicago penalty kill has been good, and the Jets power play has been awful as of late. So yeah, for me, I bet the under in this game. I think it's a pretty, not the best game environment outside of maybe a little bit of Chicago one. If you want to play Taves at 3,600 for the narrative, he has definitely been better as of late. So I don't mind getting a little bit of Taves just for the narrative. That second line's really cheap. More fade than smash according to the flow chart, which means play them. Yeah, if you want to trust the Winnipeg flow chart tonight, it is definitely a night to play them. So but like, I don't know, is it really? Because it kind of feels like to me it's a fade because I'm smart, but like the general public, it probably feels like a play because it's the Blackhawks. So I think we got a bit of a confusing flowchart situation here. Winnipeg did very well the first game. They won 6-3. I'm imagining that game was in Winnipeg. Stand by for confirmation. If the game's in Winnipeg, it's irrelevant because it was in Winnipeg. Because they don't play against the Dickinson line, right? They get to avoid that matchup. They did do very well. Connor had a goal and 2 assists. Scheifele had a goal and 2 assists. Velarde had 2 goals and 1 assist. They did great. They all hit the point bonus. Obviously, I follow up there now. But they get to dictate that matchup. They get to avoid Dickinson. They don't get to do that on the road, which is why you use these charts and you follow along. Again, I'll get to them. I just think it's more of a fade than play. That was the old Winnipeg one too, which, is always true. Velarde, although to their credit, they have also been quite good with Alex Iafallo up there. So it's not like it's that different. My numbers say fade, low pace, can't score on the road. Yeah, I agree. Let's get to game number 4. Calgary and New Jersey. As always, I'll try to do Zach some justice here. I don't know if he's in the chat or not, but it's a Markstrom Monday. Zach absolutely hates Jacob Markstrom. I have to bring it up. I don't have as much disdain for him. Coming off an okay performance against the Hurricanes, stopped 31 of 35, still lost, gave up 4 goals. But in his last 3 starts, he's given up less goals or fewer goals than what he did in one game against the Islanders. So there's positives. There's positives everywhere. This game is super duper weird. Both teams struggling offensively, both teams awful defensively. The good power play goes up against the good PK. The bad power play goes up against the bad PK. What do you do with this one? I think I want to play the Devils, especially this top line, right? Timo Meier, Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt. Let's take a look at their numbers. Not as good as you think they'd be, right? You would think those 3 together would smash. Not as good as you think. Matchup wise, it's okay. Problem is, they're going to see a lot of Backlund tonight. The Backlund line, still good defensively, basically average, not nearly as good without Blake Coleman. So they're less of a matchup nightmare when Blake Coleman's out. So Hughes on the road here, I think that line's okay. Like the defensive numbers overall here are so bad for Calgary that you want to buy in, right? I think it's super difficult to get to the Heischer line. These offensive metrics are atrocious. And then I think Gritsuk's an okay one-off because he's got some power play exposure. The problem is the power play is in a really tough spot tonight, 11th best. So Yeah, probably New Jersey won. Not a line that I'm going to play a lot of. I think that the amount of ownership that's kind of coming in here, you got 8% on the top line, 7% on Heischer. The third line seeing a decent chunk of ownership. What about the defenseman? The defenseman seeing some ownership tonight. Hughes a little bit, yeah. Hamilton. I think it's a pretty good Devin Cooley spot tonight. He grades out really well. $7,600. Going to see a lot of volume. He is projected to be the highest on goal in the slate, but so I'm not going out on a limb by any stretch. But I think it's a good Devin Cooley night. I really like that price tag. I like New Jersey 1 a little bit, but I think it's a Devin Cooley night. Calgary 1 through 3 grades out 18th, 19th, and 20th. So we'll take your pick here. Obviously, no Rasmus Anderson. He was just traded to Vegas yesterday. I didn't talk about the Vegas game. I haven't seen if Anderson's expected to make his debut because they didn't have a morning skate. We should get word probably around 6 p.m. Eastern. So obviously follow Daily Faceoff if you don't already. I don't know what you're doing. And we'll let you know whether he's playing or not. Sometimes it's a little trickier when a player gets traded from a Canadian team to an American team. But Zach Whitecloud's expected to make his debut in Calgary going from America to Canada. But I think he's a Canadian citizen. So that always helps as well. I think it'll be challenging to get the visa issues for Anderson, but I'm not. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, Zach Whitecloud confirmed Brandon, Manitoba native. Connor Zari's been surprisingly on fire, which is interesting. The problem is that his line mates haven't been. Nazem Kadri's been pretty well ice cold as of late. But Connor Zary has a 5-game point streak going. He has 2 goals and 4 assists, 6 points in that time. 3.2 shots on goal per game as well. So he's a bit of a sneaky play at $3,300. The Flames have some sneaky plays tonight. These are their new power plays. At the morning skate, the second unit on Daily Faceoff was actually listed as the first unit. I don't know why. I mean, on paper, it definitely looks like that top line is, the number 1 unit, but again, just kind of semantics, right? They're probably both going to play 50% of the time. Hunter Brusevich will be on the top or second power play unit, whichever one you want to look at. He's $2,500. I think there's some things to like here about the Flyers. I think, like, obviously with what Zary has been able to do as of late, Coronado, Backlund, Sharon Govich have been okay lately. Matvei Gradin with Kadri and Zary keeps the price tag down. I think there's some sneaky options here, right? Zary, Kadri, Gradin, 12,400. That's probably the line you want to play. They just haven't done anything. I think it's hard to have a lot of confidence in the Calgary Flames offensively. I think that, like, you could go with some of these value options that they've got. Brusevich, Zary mini stack maybe to keep things super cheap. Like, I think that's the best way to get exposure to the Flames tonight. I just don't see like a lot of really full stack possibilities. The matchups aren't great. The underlying metrics aren't great. The power play draws an okay matchup, third best, but their power play sucks. So, Brustevich and Zary minis maybe the route to go tonight, which is fun. Obviously Brusevich with Backlund, Sharangovich, and Coronado would work too, right? Like, obviously Backlund, Sharangovich on that same power play unit. Offensively, though, the metrics not nearly as good without Coleman. So, yeah, it's a weird game because on paper, like, pace is the highest of the night. Both teams suck defensively. It seems like there should be some goals. It's just I don't think there will be. I've got some interest in Calgary and New Jersey, but fully expecting things to go wrong. That's kind of how I feel too. There's like signals to where, why they should be an okay play, but it's just hard to find out exactly where to go. So mostly pass for me. Let's get to game number 5, which is the Vancouver Canucks and the New York Islanders. Awful stuff here. Just awful. Both teams suck offensively. Both teams below average defensively. The Canucks power play is good. Islanders power play sucks, but the Canucks penalty kill sucks. So it's your best guess what's going to happen in this hockey game. It's pretty awful looking. The top line for the Islanders grades out 7th best. They're seeing 7% ownership. Barzal makes sense at 6,300. He's playing so much. I don't think I can really get to much Vancouver with Sorokin getting the start. The matchups are pretty good, but Sorokin's been so good. I just don't see myself getting to a lot of Vancouver with these underlying metrics. I just don't think they generate enough to score consistently on Sorokin tonight. When you take a look at the underlying metrics here for the Islanders' top line, they're very, very good. Matchup wise, very, very bad. Vancouver's new second line grades out tremendous defensively. I don't know if that's really the case. Probably a small sample size issue more than anything. They can probably take advantage of this first and third line. So the Islanders' top line looks like it's an okay play tonight. Lee, Duclair, Barzell. More interested in Barzell. The power play is in a very, very good spot. It just doesn't produce. So if you want to buy into the Islanders' power play tonight, I think it's an okay night to try to see if they can find something. Who's guess who you want to play? Barzell, Schaefer probably. um, So yeah, mostly Barzell and Schaefer interest for me. Maybe some Lee, maybe some Duclair, maybe it's some mix of this Richie line with Heineman, right? Richie, Heineman, Schaefer, maybe. What have they done offensively? Nothing. Yeah, basically what you anticipate. Matchup's not good either, so pretty awful hockey game. Let's move on. To a much more exciting hockey game, which is interesting when you talk with the New York Rangers. Exciting is not usually the first word that comes to your mind, but it should be fun. The Ducks are pretty big favorites here. Really good offensively, not good defensively for the New York Rangers. Spencer Martin gets the start, which, obviously feels like he's not Igor Shesterkin, which is a bonus. He was not good, in his first start for the Rangers. So I don't imagine Quick hasn't played well either. So it probably doesn't matter. Gave up 3 goals and 28 shots, did beat the Flyers. Who cares? Other than that, obviously have interest in this hockey game. Obviously have interest in the Anaheim Ducks. I want to have a lot of ownership on this Anaheim second line. The chalk's pretty crazy, but they feel like pretty decent chalk. Seneca has been red hot. Granlund's been fantastic. They're both playing insane minutes. And quite honestly, the way this lineup's built, it doesn't really point you in any other direction other than Granlund and Seneca and Killorn. So it makes sense to me. And the matchups for them, it's the best matchup that you're going to see for the Ducks tonight. So everything kind of points to them, right? The underlying metrics, the matchup, the minutes, everything. Power play matchup's the only thing that's not going in the Ducks' favor tonight. But yeah, I got a lot of interest in the second line. I think they're so easy to build around. To me, you either just say fade them and come in under the field and just take your stance that they're not going to work out, or you try to get some leverage on this chalk and just go all in. I don't really see any other way to do it. I think they're a better play than they are fade, personally. I just think the shot volume you get from both of them, the minutes you get from both of them, it's going to be hard for them not to pay off value, in my opinion. So I like both of them tonight. I think Killorn's okay too. I think you could get to a little bit of the top line with Kreider, McTavish, and Strome. The underlying metrics are actually pretty strong there. The matchup's significantly worse. Power play, again, doesn't play a huge factor, but I think that they're an interesting pivot because the underlying metrics are still pretty good, and they're coming in literally 5 times lower owned than the top line. Obviously, McTavish and Kreider can find some success. It's Kreider's former team, so there's a little bit of extra juice there. So yeah, I think that obviously Granlund, Seneca feel like the better play, but everybody feels like Granlund, Seneca are the better play, so I don't mind this line as a pivot option. McTavish has been decent lately, 9 points, 5 goals in his last 14 games. Shot volume remains good. He just hasn't seen the bump in ice time like Granlund has. Granlund's played 22 and 24 and a half minutes in his last 2 hockey games. So they just much safer floor, in my opinion. On the Rangers side of things, the matchup for the second line is better than the first line. First line is going to see a lot of the Granlund line, which has been very good defensively. The first line is going to see a little bit more, or the Zibanejad line is going to see a little bit more of these 2 lines. So do you play a little bit more Zibanejad, JT Miller, and Perreault? Maybe. Do you play a little bit more Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere? Maybe. I wish they wouldn't have broken up the top line. And I can tell you that for free. For me, most of the focus is probably going to come on the Rangers power play. It's not the best matchup, but I think it's good enough. I want to play the players that are playing well. And that's Zibanejad. That's Panarin. The underlying metrics here are so bad for this when Zibanejad and Miller get together. I think it's hard to have confidence, truthfully. So I think even though the matchup is more challenging, I have more confidence in Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere than I do Miller and Zibanejad. It just doesn't work when they put them together. I don't know why. Like, I get that they don't have any secondary scoring outside of Panarin and Zibanejad right now, so they got to do something. But this just has not been the answer in the past, and it doesn't look like it's going to be the answer tonight. So, still got some interest in Zibanejad, like one-offs, maybe some power play stuff. Most of my interest in terms of 5v5 stacks is going to come through the Panarin line, for sure. They just do so much more offensively. What do you do with Cutter Gauthier? He's still drawing 9% ownership. He's still $6,700. I'm staying away for the most part. It just has not been pretty lately. The usage has been really, really up and down. Ryan Poehling and Jeffrey Vale are not good line mates, right? Like, obviously, Cutter was flourishing early in the year with Seneca and McTavish, and this is just not what he's going to get tonight. He played 60.5 minutes, did have 4 shots on goal. The shot volume is still very, very good. So I don't mind getting to him, but $6,700, it feels like a pretty penny to play. Excuse me, did I hear that correctly? Did you say Anaheim line has been good defensively? Shocker, right? I know. It's pretty crazy. Crazy times. That is the other case, right? Like, the Anaheim Ducks have struggled a lot defensively this year, and maybe they found some combinations that are starting to work, and I think that's kind of the idea behind it, right? Like, one, they're shuffling things around for Leo Carlsson. Two, they were just getting caved in every night, and they had to change something, and this is starting to seem to be working. So, I think I still want to have interest in the Rangers tonight, just because, like, the Ducks are very gettable, and the Rangers are seeing ownership, and it's not massive, but it's significant. So, to me, I'm kind of just like, hey, let's take a stand on one line. It'll probably be the Rangers top line, and then be under owned on the second line. I just hope I get it right. I just think it's so hard to trust that Zibanejad Miller duo when they play together. It just doesn't work. So yeah, Zibanejad one-offs are fine, but you need it to probably come on the power play tonight. Let's get to the goalies and the defensemen. We'll start with the blue liners here. Some of the best values on the slates. Tony DeAngelo grades out really well. I'm not sure about that, but so is Ryan Pulock. Some cheap defensemen here for the Islanders, I think, are okay. Schaefer, I mentioned already, really strong play. Faber, if you can't get to Quinn Hughes, I think Faber's good. He's projected for 29 minutes tonight, which is insane. Hughes 30 minutes. That's ridiculous. But Faber's really starting to shoot a lot more. The Leafs give up a ton of volume. Quinn's probably going to get a lot of volume tonight. I think they both make a lot of sense. Nemec back in the lineup tonight. I think he's cheap. Kuznetsov's probably going to see a lot more usage tonight with Rasmus Andersson getting traded. Ekman Larsson's been solid as of late. I like Lev Shunov again tonight. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if Anderson plays, because, like, I think if Anderson doesn't play, Hannafin, Lozon, Theodore, they're all going to take on a little bit more ice time tonight. We'll see what happens with Anderson this evening. I just want to pull up one more thing really quickly. Let's take a look at who's been doing some shit. Zach's not here to talk about who's doing some shit, so I'm going to do it for him. Let's make it a little bit bigger. All right, good enough. Who's been doing shit? Jacob Trouba, no surprise there. Jacob Trouba, Brock Faber, Cam York, Adam Pelech, Dougie, Nemec, Spurgeon, Pesci, McCabe, Sealer, Crevier, always doing shit. Lozon and Crevier, both really solid kind of floor options at $2,700. Who's been kind of doing some shit and actually putting the puck in the net? Theodore's been great since coming back. He's like points in like 10 of his last 12 games. Yeah, looks like a mostly pay down spot tonight. There's not a lot of expensive defensemen outside of Quinn Hughes, so not a surprise there. Kuznetsov, man, I think is a really interesting play at $2,600. He's probably going to play like 23 minutes tonight after this trade. So that's good news for him. And yeah, let's take a look at some forwards too. We got this up. Connor Zary, value. Where's Connor Zary at? Yeah, 5th best value forward over his last 10 hockey games. Look at that. Duclair's been really good, $3,400. So that Duclair and Barzal mini stack looking better by the minute. There's Mark Stone, man. He's been incredible. Obviously, it's hard to completely fade Mika. He's been so good, but that's a lot of that coming with Panarin. Really like Bobby McMahon. I've already talked about that. Don't mind Tyler Bertuzzi one-offs. Don't mind Hurdle one-offs. I talked about that second line with Sharon Govich and Backlund. They've been playing well as of late. So, yeah, I think we did a pretty good job covering a lot of that off. Let's get to the goalies. Talked about it a little bit already. Really like Devin Cooley tonight. I think he's in a good spot. I like Joseph Walls a bit of a chalk buster this evening as well. Sorokin feels like the safest play overall. Aiden Hill, I think, is tough to pay up for, like outside of cash. We're just not going to see any volume at all, I don't think. Hellebuck's okay. Obviously a winnable hockey game there, and $8,200, you can stand on his head and have a big night. Always interested in playing Hellebuck, but I think they're just better options tonight. Probably not going to get to a ton of Markstrom. This will be my Zach bit, but I just think like I'd rather pay $200 more for Sorokin, who feels like a better play overall and is projected for similar volume. So that's my case there. Gustafson, yeah, I mean the Leafs are missing Nylander. I think it's a winnable hockey game for the Wild. I do struggle with how injured they are, but I think they just beat a pretty good Buffalo Sabres team, so I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. And he's super duper cheap in a matchup where he's got a 51% implied win percentage. It's easy to see why he's getting ownership tonight. Lankinen has been great. He's had some good games as of late. I don't have a lot of confidence that the Canucks can score enough for him to beat Sorokin tonight. So not a lot of interest there. Dostal, probably not a lot there either. I just, again, for $100 more, you get Ilya Sorokin. So, and then these dumpster dive options, I don't mind Spencer Knight. I'm not going to play Martin. I'm not going to play Harrison. I don't mind Spencer Knight between the pipes. Do I like Jake McCabe? Yeah, Jake McCabe's always fine. Has he been doing lots of shit lately? Take a look. He's always kind of like a do a lot of shit type of guy, not a lot of ceiling. Gets the random assist. Yeah, Jake McCabe. Great block volume. That's about it. But that should be a very high event game. So I do think McCabe is fine. Who plays the most with the Granlund line? Let's take a look. Thanks to our friends at Natural Statric. They always help hook us up with this stuff. The Granlund line. Who played the most with the Granlund line last game? It was Jacob Trouba, the most used defenseman. Jacob Trouba, Jackson Lacombe, Olin Zellweger in that order. On the power play is Jackson Lacombe. So Lacombe feels like the best pair for that duo. Best to pair with Anaheim too. Jacob Trouba, a solid second. Let's sort by ranks. You got Minnesota 1, Toronto 1, Winnipeg 1, Chicago 1, Anaheim 2, Vegas 1, New York 1, Islanders 1, that is. Philadelphia 1, New York Rangers 1, and New Jersey Devils 1 as your top 10 tonight. Do you like Sorokin or Wool more? I think I made the argument earlier. I think Sorokin's the safer play. I think Wool is the higher upside play. So it depends what you're playing or your kind of appetite for success. Like Wool's going to face more volume tonight. I don't think there's any question about that. So I think like if they both give up 3 goals tonight or 2 goals, Wool's obviously be the higher, the better play. He's going to see more volume. I don't think there's any question. So I think Wool's higher upside. I think Sorokin's safer. I guess it depends on what contest you're playing in, right? If you're looking for a single entry and you're just trying to secure a W with a decent amount of points, I think Sorokin's probably the play. If you're playing in a super deep tournament and you're looking for upside and a lower owned option, I think Wool's the play. Hat-trick pick challenge. If you want to participate in today's hat-trick pick challenge, I know I owe some draws. It's been a busy time over here. We're trying to get these draws settled up here soon. Should be a good week to do it. It's a pretty balanced week. No crazy busy games. So try to get these draws settled up. But if you want to participate in today's hat-trick pick challenge, all you got to do is drop your hat-trick pick in the comment section of the video on YouTube. If your player scores a hat-trick, we'll get you a $25 gift card to Nation Gear. You can pick up some DFO swag. If a player scores a hat-trick that nobody picked, we'll just raffle it off to anybody who submitted a pick. So that's what I'm talking about. We got some draws to catch up on. I think we missed a Tage Thompson Hattie recently. So we'll catch up on those for sure. My hat-trick pick for tonight is going to be I'm going to go Mark Stone. I'm all in on Mark Stone tonight. He's been so red hot. So give me Mark Stone as my hat-trick pick. I can't imagine Mark Stone has many hat-tricks, but hopefully one tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in to this solo edition. Zach will be back tomorrow. We got an 8-game slate tomorrow. For the Americans, enjoy your day off. And for the Canadians, we got an extra half hour to build our lineups. And yeah, that's going to do it. Smash the like button. We'll see you back here tomorrow.